Good morning, everybody. I'm Melissa Nielsen with Waldorf Essentials, and welcome to our Monday video. Before we get started today, I want to remind everybody to hurry on over and sign up for our summer camp, and that is at melissanielsen.com/camp. For our awesome summer camp that we're doing. It's going to be 4 days of live instruction, and some of it is with dad. 2 days of it is with dad, and to just sort of get those juices flowing so that everybody's on the same page. And then the rest of it is homeschool instruction for all the grades. So that's over at melissanielsen.com/camp. Um, and we'll put the link up in the comments. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask us. So today's topic is how many days to school? Um, how many days do you consider for your school day week? And so I wanted to sort of talk about ways that we've done it in the past, ways that we're doing it now, and sort of what your options are, because I get this question a lot. The question usually is, where do I fit in a co-op that I want to do? Where do I fit in these extra classes that I want to do, and still be able to have all the school days that we need to have? So I will say that right now we school 3 days, and that means 3 days for main lessons. So, how do we get all of the work in when we only do 3 days? So we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about sort of the difference between what you can do with 4 days versus 3 days, and sort of how we go about navigating all of that. So first of all, when we started and when we wrote our curriculum, we wrote it with 4 days in mind, and with that, I did 4 days rather than 5 because many families do a field trip day, or I also wanted to make sure that there was always enough to have if you have sick days, so there was always a catch-up day, and we actually did that 4 day rhythm for a lot of years. We did it for, oh goodness, until probably, I was trying to remember when we switched to 3 days, dear. It was probably, it was when Sam was in kindergarten, I think, and it was and my workload got bigger, and so I had the need to have 3 days rather than 4. So, and on that extra day, Eric takes the kids and they do the library, they do museums, so it's like a field trip day for us, and so we kind of worked within that. But then when we moved to San Diego, our co-op met on one of those days. So what we do is we have Tuesday, which is our co-op, and we're there from 10 to 1. And I absolutely count that as a school day. I do not count that as an instruction day for me, so I'm not doing main lessons that day. But because our co-op is structured the way it is, and we do lessons at our co-op, it is absolutely counted as a school day for me. And then our library and museum days with dad are also counted as school days because there's always something that they're doing that is learning, and always. And so I wanted to make sure that that when we have those 2 extra days, that they are always doing something that is learning, because they do have to report for the state of California. So if you don't have to report, it's no big deal. But if you do have to report and you have to keep track of your attendance, then you want to make sure that on those 2 days off that you are actually doing something that's school worthy. Now, one of my arguments too is, keep a child from learning, because this is not possible. But so you're always putting your children in learning in environments where they have the opportunities to learn, and so we're sort of doing that anyways as homeschoolers. But with regards to those extra 2 days, that's how we handle that. So one day is our co-op. Like I said, it's from 10 to 1, so it's pretty lengthy school day, and they are busy the entire time that they're at our co-op. And the other day is it's like a library field trip day, and that's with dad. So and I know that's not the reality for most people, so you're going to be the one that's on for all of this. And what I would do is I would just look at what you're doing on that fourth day. If you're on that fifth day, excuse me, if you're wanting to do a 3 day school week and you're trying to sort out how to do that, plan your field trips, plan your trips to the library, plan all of those things on that extra day off so that you can school for 3 days. And I know the reality for some people is that some people have 2 co-op days. There's a lot of, there's a charter school here in San Diego that does their, because our co-op is so big, they do their co-op day or their school day separate from ours so that then parents can do both. And so there are, many reasons why you would want to do a 3-day main lesson school week, and that would be one of them. So one of the other things that comes up is, well, we've written it for 4 days, so how do you back up that material and get it into 3 days? And so when we first started, I really wanted it to work. So I really wanted it to work. So I really worked on, okay, how can I do this and get in all the information? And so what I'll do is I will use first grade sort of as an example, but I will say that when I'm planning my main lessons, I do always try to keep the thinking, feeling, willing element in there, so and I try to let that govern me as I'm doing their main lesson planning. So if you're doing your planning right now and you're trying to sort out what should go where, try to keep that in mind all the time. And that would be a thinking component, a willing component, and a feeling component. And those are present in a couple of different ways. So a thinking component would be like the recall and the summary, where they're actually writing and they're having to think about it. A feeling component could be taking in the story. The thinking component and the willing component could both be together. Sorry, I got an itch right here this morning. That's driving me crazy. Excuse me. The thinking and the willing component could be together in the writing, but also the willing component comes in the artistic portion of it. So I try to make sure that when I plan a lesson, and one lesson often takes 2 days. So you have 2 components. You have the first part and the second part, and it's stretched over 2 days. And so you want to make sure that that thinking, feeling, and willing portion with regards to the lesson is taken care of over that 2-day cycle. So and then yeah, so I'll explain that and then I'll go back to what else was coming into my head. So that thinking, feeling, and willing portion, let's use first grade for an example, just because it's easy to sort of see how it's broken down. And if you have questions about other grades, I'm happy to answer them. So in first grade, we have these in first through third grade, really, and actually even this could even be for fourth grade. As you're bringing the stories, say you're bringing a fairy tale. So you bring a fairy tale on day 1, and you're bringing that fairy tale. They're listening to you tell the story, and because you're not reading it from the book, right? You're going to tell the story, and you're telling it in a very artful way, but matter of fact way. So you're bringing that story, and that's that feeling portion of it for day 1. And then you're going to do some art from that. So that's a willing portion. And you might do a painting, a drawing, some modeling from it. All of those are willing pieces. And so you might do that on day 1. So that day 1 might be a little bit shorter. I tend to bring in form drawing on that day as well. Hello to all the moms that are watching. So I bring in form drawing that first day as well, because that tends to be a lighter day lesson wise. And so we'll bring in form drawing on that day, and then we let it go to sleep for the night, because sleep consolidates our memory and consolidates our work. And so then we go to day 2. And I'm using the 3-day rhythm cycle. So on day 2, we are sleep is consolidated things. So we're easily doing the recall. So we do the recall on day 2 from the story from day 1. So we're doing that recall and that summary, and writing that summary is part of the thinking portion, and doing the recall is part of that thinking portion, and also part of the willing portion as well. So we're doing that summary on day 2 for the day 1 story. Then we bring in, because we're doing this 3-day cycle, then we bring in new material. So that new material would be the next story. And sometimes we take a little bit of a break, not a long break, but like let's go ahead and do a potty break, or let's grab a snack really quick, because it is nice to have a break between one and the next one. I think it helps them a little bit. I wouldn't break it up too much, because I'm not taking a break that's any more than maybe 5, maybe 10 minutes tops. And it's really, I try to just fill it with things like I said, like going to the potty or grabbing a snack, or let's shuffle some things around here, just so that there's a enough of a break between the two lessons that it doesn't feel confusing, especially for the first grader. So then we bring in the second day story, and we're working again with the feeling portion with the story, and then we're also working with the willing portion because we're doing the art for day two. And so we've got day two is a really heavier day, and I definitely always make sure that I plan extra time because I do this for all of the grades. And so I would plan an extra long day two for both Soraya, who will be my first grader, and for Sam, who will be my sixth grader. And so we plan that so that I know that that day two is always going to be longer. And those are days that we generally don't go anywhere afterwards. They might go to karate in the afternoon, but that's at like 4 o'clock. And so it's not a big deal. So, but we're doing school that day definitely until 1 o'clock, sometimes a little bit later. But we're getting in all of that work. So again, day two, you have finished the work from day one, and then you're bringing that new story. Bring in the new story, and with that, you're doing the willing portion of the art, and then from that, you again let it go to sleep because sleep consolidates everything. And then on day three, you're doing the summary for the day two story. And then your day three is a little bit of a shorter day, and we're doing any catch up work that we need to on that day. And then we're done for the week. So that gets in 4 days worth of work if you're looking at our lesson plans into three. And it works very nicely. So the 4 day plan would be day one. Day one, you would do a story, and if you aren't looking at our lesson plan, so I'm just sort of saying this so that you know. Day one, you would do a story. Day two, you would recall that story in summary, and then that would be done. And then the next 2 day cycle would be the same. And so that would be if you're doing a 4 day cycle. But I think it is very attractive to a lot of moms to do a 3 day cycle because there's so much that you can accomplish on those 2 days off as far as like I said, co-ops and field trips, and that way you're not sort of feeling like you're always running behind. Do we have any questions over here, Daddy-O? No? Okay, just making sure. Does anybody have any questions about this concept so far? It's something that we do like I said, I've been doing it for several years now, and I find it very, we don't have any problems getting through the material at all. We get through all the same material that we would otherwise. And then we don't have, like I said, we have all of that coming together very nicely for a 3 day school week as far as, and I say 3 day school week, but it's really a 3 day main lesson week. So then we're bringing all of those other elements in as well. We're still doing handwork, and we do handwork every day, not just on main lesson days. So we do handwork in co-op because that's a portion of our co-op, and then they still do handwork on the other days. Often I even get them to do handwork on the weekend because I do handwork as well. So let's see. Jason has a question. Can you give a brief example of grade one, as I hear that is when academics pick up? It's really not any different. So you would bring that same 2 day cycle in. You would bring let's use an Old Testament story as an example. You would bring a story in, and you would do a drawing piece from it. And then the next day you would still do the recall and summary from that. The way the academics pick up is that's when you're starting to introduce all of the, excuse me, all of the, introducing all of the nouns and the verbs and all of those things. So that's where you're seeing academics pick up. You're seeing mathematics get a little bit harder. So that's when a lot of moms go, oh, wow, this is not gnomes and fairy tales anymore. And so there is that little bit of adjustment, but it's really not a big deal. It's so nicely layered that it's actually very beautiful the way it all comes around. And Kelly, I see that you're on here. Do you mind dropping the camp link into the comments when you get a second, please? Okay, hold up. You got a question over there? I was going to answer some more over here. Go ahead.
Are there disadvantages to a 3 day lesson week that we should look out for?
The only disadvantages that I would say, that's a really good question. The only disadvantages that I would say is don't play too much. It's really easy, I think, to try to cram things into those 3 days rather than really laying them out, rather than really paying attention to those thinking, feeling, and willing portions and making sure that you're actually getting things done on those days. What can happen, and I've totally been there. I've been there in the place like just going to rush through, and of course that's not my norm, but there have been times where I'm like, we really want to go play, let's hurry and rush through, and I would absolutely rather skip a lesson than rush through it, just because I don't want them to ever feel shortchanged. So hopefully that helps. That would be the biggest disadvantage that I could see. The disadvantage to the 4-day week is that you might feel like school is all broken up if you decide to go, oh, well, we're going to do the co-op in the morning and then come home and do school. I'm telling you, it doesn't ever work. So don't plan it that way. And if it works, you're going to feel burned out and frustrated. I know when we come home from co-op, everybody sort of retreats because everybody's exhausted. And so I don't know if it's just, because we're all on, and then we come home and everybody sort of breathes in a little bit and everybody needs their space. I cannot even imagine trying to do school on those co-op days. Let's see. I'm going to go back through to some questions here. Karen says, with the 2-day cycle, do you sleep on a story like the 3-day? Absolutely. So with in those 4 days or 2 days within those 3 days. So there's always the sleep element. Always. We always want it to go to sleep for it to accommodates things. So sleep will help them with their memory better. So you're always doing a day 1 and day 2, even in the 3-day cycle. So in the 3-day cycle, you do day 1, day 2, day 1. So on day 2, you're doing day 1 again. And then on day 2 for the third day, then you're doing the day 2 again. I don't know if that makes sense. Let me try that again. So on the 3-day cycle, 3 days, you have the day 1 portion of the story on the first day. And on the second day, you have the day 2 portion of the story and the day 1 portion of the next story. So that's day 2. That's why day 2 is so much longer of the 3-day cycle. And then on the third day, you do the second part of the second story. Does that make sense? If it doesn't make sense, let me know in the comments, because I want you to be able to visualize it. If you write down what I'm saying, I promise you'll be able to see it then. And I'll make a graphic when we put this on the blog so that you can see easily. And I'll do that today, probably, after I go to the beach. So we're going to go have some fun today. Okay, and Lennon says, I missed the first 10 minutes. I did a 3-day week with my 8th grader last year, but 4-day with my 2nd grader. This year I need to move with the 3-day for both of them. Thanks for going over this again. You are welcome. I really like using the 3-day cycle, and thank you, Kelly, for posting that. I appreciate that. Oh, Karen says, I called it a 2-day cycle. I meant 4. Yeah. So the 4-day cycle is like super, it's the same as the 3-day, except for you're taking that center day that's so much longer with the 3-day cycle and you're pulling it apart. So you'd have a day 1, day 2 story for the first 2 days of the week, and then a day 1, day 2 story for the second 2 days of the week if you're doing a 4-day cycle. And you may be in a spot where you don't have any other outside activities, and that's totally fine. You just want to do a 4-day cycle. I think that's a completely lovely way to run your school week, and then you have that extra day off if you need it. I think that is I think that's perfectly fine. I think that where we tend to see people that ask for the 3-day cycle more is when kids are a little bit older and their activities start to pick up a little bit. And we're always being overcautious anyway to not have too many activities for our kids, but we have co-ops that they want to be part of, or some camps sometimes, and so we're making sure that we're still getting in all of the learning and all of the lesson work with regards to making sure that we do the lessons. Okay, so Karen says day 1 story A. Yes. Day 2 story A. Day 3 story B. No. Okay, let me back up. So I'll use the story A, story B thought process. So generally in a 4-day week, you're bringing 2 concepts. You're bringing one concept over 2 days and then one concept over 2 days. In the 3-day week, you're still bringing 4 concepts. You're just bringing in 3 days. So you are, or 2 concepts, excuse me. You're just bringing in 3 days. So day 1 would be story A. And like I said, form drawing or something like that. Day 2 would be the summary from story A plus the telling of story B. So that's why day 2 is longer. Day 3 is the summary from story B. Does that make more sense? Hopefully. Does anybody else have any questions about the 3-day week? We do have a blog post about this that's older, and I'm going to put a chart up when we put this video up on the blog as well, just because I know it's like hard to visualize sometimes, and so if you can visualize it, I know you can do it, and because it will help you. If you're really trying to do the 3-day week, I know it will help you. When the grades get older, the middle school, high school grades, you are doing longer days for sure, because you have these sort of extra days that you're trying to pull in, and their work is already deep anyway if you were doing 4 days. And so be prepared that if you're doing 3 days, you're trying to accomplish that in 3 days, that it's going to be much longer school day. Do you have a question over there?
Do the lesson days need to be consecutive?
No, I get that question a lot. They do not need to be consecutive. In fact, I am going to say it's better if they're not. We do school Monday, Wednesday, Friday, like main lessons Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and that tends to work really well. We don't have any problems with recall at all. In fact, it's just 2 nights of consolidation. It's generally not a problem. I may say something like, hey, remember the story we did on Monday was about the fox and the hound or whatever. And then they'll go, oh yeah. And then then the recall starts. I might just remind them that that we are, the story that we were on. But no, I've never had any problems with not doing them consecutively. In fact, I would think that it would almost be harder on them to do it consecutively, because then it's almost like you have a 4-day weekend and you're trying to get back in the school mode. So where you have it broken up a little bit, I think is a lot easier for them and easier for you, I think, too. Anything else over there?
Christine Jones says, I'm planning to switch to a 3-day week. I'm worried about the kids resisting that long day. Plus, I'm going from one main lesson to 2. How hard is that long day?
It's really not. And when I say it's a long day, I mean, it is longer. It's longer by probably 30 minutes per lesson or so. 20 to 30 minutes, depending on which grade you're teaching. Of course, if you're talking about high school, it might be longer by an hour, but I don't think you're going to have a hard time. I think if you can keep in mind what your goals are, and you can make sure you keep those thinking, feeling, willing components together in all of your lesson planning, I don't think you're going to have a problem. You just you're going to have an adjustment anyway, because you're going from 1 child to 2. Do your planning really well. Make sure you have something for that second child to do while you're while you're working with the first one. That's often the biggest struggle. But honestly, if you plan it out and you know what that child's going to do, then you're not going to have a struggle. I think that, like I know Soraya will be, she's a rising first grader. And so I know that when I say, okay, it's Sam's time, she's going to be like, see ya. Bye, gonna go play now. It's not gonna be a big deal at all. And if she had siblings underneath her, we would do what we did with when we had younger children, and that would be an older child then is buddied up with the younger child so if an older child, and I'll just talk about how I do that really quick. An older child is buddied up with the younger one so that you can do the main lesson work of the middle child, and then they all rotate, and it works beautifully. Works beautifully if you can. You have to make sure that you pair up the younger child with somebody they like and that there's no angst there, but in general, it works very nicely. So any other questions?
No.
Okay. This is, I think this is a fun topic. I think that if ways that you can get the lesson work in so that you can still accomplish what you need to at home, whether it be with extra lessons or things like that. I think it's just a great way to really be able to run your school year and feel very confident that you're getting everything in. So if you have any questions about sort of the 3-day cycle or even the 4-day cycle, because like I said, there's definitely validity in that. And if we had the time, we would absolutely still probably do the 4-day cycle. There's no benefit over one over the other, except for that one is 3 and one is 4. I don't think that you get in more work with the 4-day cycle. I don't. In fact, I would probably say that because we are so mindful, because we are doing 3 days, we get in the exact same amount of work, and I probably push a little bit more to get more in, just because I'm always trying to be very mindful of it. So yeah, just be mindful of your time and be mindful of sort of what you've got ahead of you. And I think that you'll be fine. One last one over here. Marie says, I feel like I need to do a 4-day cycle with 3 kids. If that works for you, I've never had any problems. I've been doing the 3-day cycle even when I had all 5 in the same house, and we were doing 4 main lessons, and we had an infant. But I'm kind of stubborn. Because I wanted that extra day. So those were the day 2 is definitely longer days, but it worked out. It worked out really well. And so, but you have to do what really works for your family. And if 4 days works better for you, then definitely 4 days. I do think as they get older, even when we had, so last year, when we had Eleanor and she was in 11th grade, this year she's actually decided to take her GED, I think. And so we're not going to be doing lessons this year. But last year when we had her, sometimes on the days that I worked and Dad took the kids out, she stayed home and she would come and we would do some extra math or work on some main lesson stuff. And so she kind of like filtered in a little bit more on those extra days off, but not a terrible much. So I think it's all about making it work for your family. So look at the overall picture, look at what your goals are, look at what your needs are, and then go from there. I think that it's absolutely doable. So, okay, I think we're done. All right, you guys have a wonderful week. And if you're in the United States, have a happy and safe 4th of July. And we will see you guys next Monday. Bye now. I have no idea.